Thank you. Very good. Okay, so, and also for any competitive bids, if you are interested and you actually took out the actual bid that you want to bid on, it has to be delivered once you reviewed it, once you provided your pricing, it is delivered to this office here. This is the bid and bond room. This is officially the bid and bond room, room 103. And this is where you will solicit it to them. It will have a time that is to be delivered by. So usually our bids are to be delivered by 11 a.m. unless it's an RFP or RFQ, which is by 4 o'clock p.m. on that particular day. And it mentions something also about a planned deposit. It may be required for some bids, and those are usually for the construction projects. A pre-bid. Now, a pre-bid is an opportunity for the user department to give you a little bit of an understanding about what the product, service that they want to receive bids for. So, it's a review of the specification. So, once you download the specification, they will go over that. Make sure that they answer any questions that you might have on that specification. They will address any concerns regarding that specification. It'll be a Q&A period. And bidders are all, attendance is encouraged because this is also an opportunity for you to network. This is an opportunity to meet those who will bid it, those who will be a sub on that particular project. And if there are questions that are not answered at that particular pre-bid, an addendum or clarification will be issued to answer those questions. So that gives them enough time, the user department enough time to really dive into the questions and make sure the bidding community has an opportunity to understand what the actual bid will entail, okay? So that's what the pre-bid would do. Okay, but if there is not a pre-bid, bidders are encouraged to review the specification. So like I mentioned, all of our bids are posted online. So I did mention you would go to cityofchicago.org/procurement, and then you would be able to download the actual bid document, okay? And also, we also put the contract administrator, who is the actual person who handled that particular procurement. He will be identified in the bid advertisement, so you can reach out to that person as well about the bid documents. All right. So for the competitive bids, you must be able to fill out all of the bid documents. There could be affidavits. They ask for affidavits about local firms. So if you're in the Chicago region, there's an incentive, and we'll talk about incentives a little bit later, but you're required to fill out all the documents that are in the actual bid documents, making sure that a person of signature authority is signing the document. And if not, we would need some kind of corporate resolution. So if a secretary signed, we would need a corporate resolution that will allow that person the ability to sign for that firm. As it mentioned there, if it is not signed or executed in the correct manner, that bid could be rejected. So everybody understands that. What is rejected means, it means that your bid will be returned to you. You're no longer being considered for this particular bid, okay? So make sure you sign and execute the document and get it notarized. So your signature must be notarized by a notary, who is also, their license must be current as well too. Can I get it notarized by somebody whose license is no longer good? So, okay? All right, so also for the competitive bids, there's a bid submittal date, and it should include any bid deposit. And like I said, most cases this is for construction. And they're telling you that cash is not accepted, so it will be in the form of the bid deposit, and it's usually 5% of your bid, and it's normally refundable. So, and those are usually refunded about 10 days after the bid opening. And there also may be a bid fee, which is non-refundable and may be required for some bid submittals over $100,000. A lot of these are those for construction. So if you're interested in construction, take heed to some of this information here. All right? Our bid openings, I mentioned, are usually at 11 o'clock a.m. unless specified otherwise. And our competitive bids are 11 o'clock a.m. RFQs and RFPs, or requests for qualifications or proposals, are all due by 4 o'clock. But the bids are open and read aloud, so we have someone here on staff who will read the bids at 11 o'clock a.m. They will look at that clock there at 11 o'clock. They will close all bids. No more bids can be accepted for a particular specification. And then she will physically read each bid to the bidding community, whoever is here in attendance. And then the bids are to be tabulated, meaning what does that mean? They'll come upstairs, and whoever the contract administrator is on staff will tabulate the bids, because there are errors sometimes. Somebody may have put a decimal in the wrong spot. It is our job to say that our bids are they're not the apparent low bidder until they get a bid tabulation, okay? Bid tabulations can be viewed online. So like I said, if anybody here, small businesses, they are viewed 24 hours after the bid opening. So you can go and see, where did I fall? Were you the low bidder? Okay, so that's what that's all about. Like I said, that citychicago.org procurement is a good site to make sure you remind yourself of that site. Now the award process, like I said, maybe you are the low bidder for that particular project. There is an award process now. It has to be signed off by the comptroller, by our CPO, and by the mayor. Small orders only needs to be signed off by the comptroller and the CPO. Anything under 100,000, comptroller and CPO. All bids over 100,000 must be signed by comptroller, CPO, and the mayor. And what is the award process? Determination is made regarding the bidder's responsiveness and responsibility. So what does that mean? The bidder must be responsive to any questions that we may ask after the actual bid opening. We may ask for documents. We may ask for clarification of how you're going to get the product from A to B. We may ask for sample requests. All of this is you need to be responsive to what we ask after that bid opening. And if you're not, this is the ability for the CPO to make a determination that we can reject the bid because they were not responsive. And responsibilities also as well too. You are responsible as a bidder, and that you are doing all due diligence to make sure that the contract administrator on record is getting everything they need to move forward with an award. So very important. So the recommendation of award, what is that? That comes from the user department. The Department of Procurement Services, we are the facilitating agency. We are not the buyer of the goods. It is the user departments. So the Department of Transportation, Fleet and Facility Management, Aviation, all those departments, we work for them. They provide the products. Not the products, they are the ones the products will go to. They are the ones that you guys will deliver products or perform the services for. So that's where the recommendation of award will come from. It will come from them. They say, okay, this vendor did everything we asked. They provided the samples, or they gave us the documents we needed. And then the recommendation of award will come over to the contract administrator on record, and then we will begin to package that bid. And when I say package the bid, that means putting all the documents in a folder to be sent for, as I mentioned, the 3 signatures: comptroller, CPO, and mayor. And in some cases, there's a performance and payment bond that's necessary. That is for a construction project over 100,000. We will also need insurance. You make sure that you have insurance. In most cases, you need general liability, workers' comp, automobile. And if it's a professional nature, we'll need a professional liability insurance. If the work is by a railroad, we will need railroad liability. And if by water, you need marine insurance. So these are all back to the responsiveness and responsibility. If we need that insurance document and you provided something that does not have that type of coverage, and we ask you, we need you to provide this, this is important for you to provide that to the contract administrator on record. And then the last and most important part, the contract is awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. So what does that mean? So if there's company A that is a low bidder, but they was not responsive, we have the right to reject company A and go to company B. Okay, that should be clear. We go to company B because, and then we ask them the same questions. I need insurance. I need you to provide X, Y, Z. If you provide all that, then they are then considered the lowest and responsible bidder. Okay, and then we will try to award that a contract. Okay, that is the award process. Now this is a little bit different. The request for proposals. Now this is a method to solicit proposals to implement a new project requiring professional services, as I mentioned, like psychiatric services, veterinary services. This is not a clear cut, I need a widget, or I need this particular service, I need a professional service. So this is a method that we use. And this is when we don't have an in-house technical service to provide it. So we ask the bidding community or the consultants who may provide that service to provide us with this requirement. Now, RFP defines project objectives. We tell them what we want them to do, and then the scope of services, but it doesn't detail every aspect of the implementing project. We want the vendors to kind of fill in the gaps, okay? And it requires detailed evaluations of the proposal by an evaluation committee. So that means that there's going to be a group of people, usually 3 to 5, it's an odd number, that's going to review your proposals. So when those proposals come in, and those are the ones I mentioned, they come in after 4:00 p.m., they will, at a given time, look at all the proposals, and then they will give a score. So it's a little bit different. This is not based on the lowest price. This is based on the most qualified firm with the right price for an RFP. And like I say, award is made to the highest rated and ranked respondents. So with those scores, the firm with the highest score is usually the one that gets maybe awarded that contract, okay? Now the next selection is a request for qualification, and this is not a money-based situation at all. This is, we're asking for the qualification of the firm, meaning we want to know who your personnel is. Are they available? What's their technical expertise? And this is where we dive into that. And can they, whoever's on your staff, can they fulfill the scope of services that's under the request for qualification? All right? And for these, this is usually handled in my group for the A&E. See, the city, you would use this to pre-qualify companies to build a vendor pool. So say, for instance, for a request for qualification, we could receive, say for a bridge construction in the city of Chicago, we could receive roughly about 70 different qualifications from firms, 70. And then we would take those to our user department, usually it's CDOT, usually it's for water management, and then they, as a group, we will have an evaluation committee. It mentions about it, we have an evaluation selection, same thing as an RFP, and then we at that time will sit with those, and then they will get it to a pool. They get it to maybe 20 or 30 firms out of the 70. And then we will go through a task order process, okay? And this is a process where those 20 firms will give us, say we want them to do Lakeshore Drive Bridge for the next 5 years. We want them to be able to provide a team out of their group to design that bridge. So that is their opportunity at that time that they will give you their team to do that work. And then at that time, they'll tell you how much that will cost. So all this will happen at that point, all right? And then, like I say, the fee schedule is negotiated later as part of the master agreement. And like I mentioned earlier, that this is used for all A&E design contracts. So you probably see a lot of different, like Wacker Drive, that was a A&E design project. Lakeshore Drive was a A&E project. They're going to have a later north side, Lakeshore Drive is going to be reconstructed. They're going to ask for RFQ for vendors to help design that work. So very important process. All right, job order contracts. Now this is used mainly in construction, but and then we do have a job order contract workshop much like this, but it is a fixed price, competitively bid, indefinite quantity contract. Okay, and is a method to use to solicit qualification from companies who possess a high degree of technical expertise and knowledge in specific disciplines. And this method is used to accomplish small to medium-sized projects. This was the method that was used or is being used currently right now by O'Hare Airport and the airports. They use it for a little small task that's within the airport that they cannot do with their own in-house crews right now. General contractors are solicited to respond to an advertised job specification which obtains a unit price book. And like I said, they'll dive into that a little bit more deeper at the job order contracts workshop. Okay. And like I say, it is awarded to the general contractor offering the most favorable adjustment factor. So it's not based on a bid per se. They use an adjustment factor to determine who is going to be awarded the actual work for that particular job. and the value of the job contract depends upon the departmental needs and budget. So everything always goes back to the user department. The user department is who determines who gets awarded a contract. All right? Now, like I said, this is more touching on what may have been discussed earlier. Certifications, like I said, we have the 5 different certifications. Now, MBE and WBE are the ones that's probably most commonly recognized, and that's a minority-owned business or a women-owned business. But we've now added the BEPD, which is a business enterprise owned by people with disabilities. DBE is a disadvantaged business enterprise, which is basically used by the state and by federal government on their projects. And then you have the ACDBE, which is mainly utilized by the aviation department, the airport concession disadvantaged business enterprise. Okay, and the basic eligibility requirements, businesses must be at least 51% owned and controlled by a minority. Like I said, this might be redundant of what they spoke about there. But you cannot, under 49%, of work on a project. It must be done by at least 51%, owned by at least 51% on the project. And then under the BEPD program, the business must be also at least 51% owned and controlled by an individual with a disability. Okay, now the contract monitoring compliance. Now this can take place once a contract is awarded. In most cases, a lot of our contracts have goals, meaning we have a 25 and 5, meaning 25 MBE, 5% WBE, or lower. Contract monitoring compliance is their job to monitor that contract over the life of the contract. And what they would do is monitor the actual utilization of the MBE, WBEs during the whole entire utilization of that contract. And they will ensure that CRR requirements are met, that's the Chicago Residency Ordinance, are being met, and equal employment opportunity commitments. Okay, now let's talk about the Chicago Residency Ordinance. Contract must be estimated at $100,000 or more, so that's all competitively bid contracts, and funded by the City of Chicago. So it must be City of Chicago funds for a CRO to be effective. And 50% of the total work hours must be performed by actual residents of the City of Chicago. So this is something that we monitor on every contract that has goals on it. Now, EEO, or Equal Employment Opportunity, this is in order to promote equality of opportunity for MBE or, well, for minority and female personnel on city-funded construction projects, and projects an award criteria determination must be inserted to each contract specification that is estimated $100,000 or more. And it says that bidders are invited to propose the minority and female employee utilization goals. So this is an opportunity for the GC or the general contractor to determine how many women and male in particular disciplines on their contract they will employ. So that, and like I say, and this gets monitored by our contract monitoring and compliance group. Okay. And the way to achieve compliance: one, if you're an MBWBE, you could bid it, and that's one way we would get our MBE, WBE, or DBE compliance. Or you can joint venture with another MBE, WBE, or DBE. Or you can subcontract a portion of the work to another MBE, WBE, or DBE. And then the purchasing materials that are used in performance of other contracts for one or more. When you purchase materials, there are some guidelines that says that if you buy supplies from another, you only receive 60% credit because they're not doing a useful function. All they're doing is giving you the product. So they're not doing a useful function. So in a lot of cases, supplies is considered only a 60% credit for MBE or for compliance, monitoring and compliance. Okay? The reporting requirements. The prime contractors, if you are the prime on any particular contract, you must provide monthly subcontractor payment certification forms. And then you must also provide weekly certified payrolls and any waivers of liens. You must provide this to our contract monitoring and compliance group. Okay? Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier about the different programs and bid incentives. On a lot of our contracts, well, all of our contracts, except for small orders, we want to utilize the bid incentives because it encourages more businesses from, say, these different groups. So if you look at the different groups, we have a small business initiative. We do that for our construction group. We have a diversity credit program, and we have a mentor protege program. And then then we have these various 7 incentives. You got the small business enterprise incentive. You have a veteran-owned business enterprise incentive. You have the business enterprise owned by people with disabilities, the city-based manufacturers, city-based businesses, and apprentice utilization, and alternatively powered vehicles. So these are all areas that you can fill out an affidavit and say, okay, I'll just pick one. If you're a city-based business, it allows you 2% off of your price, and it could then make you become the low bidder because of that 2%. Okay, so and these are all, they offer various percentages off of the bid to allow for your bid to become lower. It's an incentive, like I said, for those businesses to lower your price. So if there's almost a 2% variance between you and the next low bidder, that 2% can propel you to be the low bidder. So it's important to take advantage of those bid incentives. All right. On our website, here are the various components that you can find. I'm going to go through each one of them. On our website, you can see any awarded contracts. If there's any interest in any kind of product that's out there that you're interested in, you can go up here and you can research by the name, or you can go find, if you know the contract number, you can look it up that way. You can look for any payments. If you're the sub on it, you can go and find out if a payment has been made to your firm or another firm. Bid tabulation, we spoke about that earlier. You can find out the pricing for a bid, whether or not you were the low or whether you're the second low. You can see all our bid opportunities. You can see the MBWB directory. You can find other firms out there that's out there doing work, and you're looking for MBWB on your project. You can go to our searchable directory. The bid incentives are on our website, the regulations, and of course I mentioned about our web address. That's very important, cityofchicago.org/procurement. So let me talk about how can you find, like I say, different vendors, contracts, and payments. Once you get to our website, on the left it tells you got vendor information, contracts and awards, the disclosure, bid tabs, the opportunity takeout lists, payments, reported subcontractor payments. You can search for any of those, and then when you get to I want to search for it, it's a drop down that allows you to provide information in there. So here's the drop down. Once you go there, you can now put in, I think the vendor name was Company A, put that in and hit search. It'll give you all the contracts for Company A. Or say if you're more specific, if you know the PO number of that contract, that's probably more the desirable or spec number. That's probably the most beneficial way to go and find the information you're looking for. Okay, so that's for contracts and awards. And then once you hit the contract, then here's the PO number that comes up. So they put up 4848. There's the contract there. Tells you the name of the contract. Tells you the vendor name. Tells you the amount of the contract. And then where that little A is, that tells you that's the copy of the contract. That you can go click on 4848 with the line underneath, and it'll actually bring up the actual contract. So once you, like you say, opens it up, then it tells you about all the modifications that were done on that contract. If you see on the far right, it tells you all the different values that was done. First one was done for $1,694 in 2005. That was the first modification. And the next one was for $24,000. Okay? And if you want to now look for payments, if you know the vendor's name, you can go in there, or you know the payment date. Put the information in, hit the search, and then it will go back. Let me go back, and like I said, then it'll do the same thing. It'll search for anything that happened under that vendor name and the payment date. So like I say, the more information you guys have, the better it'll be for you to be able to find this information. The bid tabulations, like I say, after the bid opening, this is where you will come to find out, okay, was I the low bidder? Was I the second low bidder? All you need to do in this case, if you got the bid opening date, or if you have the spec number, I will put either one of those two in, hit the search, and it will give you the information that you want on that. All right, so let's go over. This is, like I say, we're on Facebook. This is where we are now. We're on Twitter. This is where I also say we'll post all bid advertisements and addendum, and upcoming workshops and events, and new policies and procedures that affect the vendor community. So very important that you take down that website, cityofchicago.org/procurement, because that is where you will get most of the information that I discussed today. All right? I want to thank you, and now any questions that we might have. Yes? Yep. That's a disadvantaged business enterprise. Those are mainly used at the state and federal level. MBWBE is usually mainly on a city-funded contract. So, so if you're a disadvantaged, you would have to fill out for. You have to go through the state, METRA, the state, of course, IDOT. All of those are the agencies that will certify you as a DBE. Oh, yes. You can be MWND and BCDBE. Yes, yeah, you can be all of them. Yes, and also too, just so you know, too, Cook County is our reciprocating agency. So if you're a WBE, MBE with the City of Chicago, then your certification is good for any projects for them, and vice versa. Okay, so that's good to know. Yes. Any questions? Yeah.
What's your qualifications to be on federal, on that level? Federal level?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, what's your qualifications?
Well, each agency has their own qualifications. So, Metro, you would have to apply. You have to go to IDOT. You have to apply. There are different levels that they look at. Now, I cannot speak to how, because we do work with the MBWBEs. Basically, we do not approve DBE funded firms. You have to go to those various agencies to be approved for DBE certification. Yeah. But on our projects, we may have a state funded or federal. Then it's a DBE goals that are required. Then we utilize those for our utilization. So, okay. 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 All right. I appreciate you coming out. Thank you for. All right. All right.